Hi, here I am back again. It's been a very, very busy summer, what with relatives and all sorts of things going on. Um, but I'm back. I'll be trying to really get up to speed on doing YouTube and Patreon videos from now on. So, this one I'm showing you here is a picture that I put up on Patreon last night, and the story behind it is it's based on a how-to book by Robert Wood, who was my first tutor, if you want to call it that. That's a copy of the first book that I ever bought on how to paint, and that is roughly that picture, or that's what that picture is based on. Anyway, that's on Patreon. It would be lovely if everybody who was on here, or some more of the people who are on here, could support me on Patreon as well. As I said, I will get better at putting things up. I'm waffling now because I'm looking for a particular page. There. Put that out of the way, and we've got a not quite square board on the easel, and this one, just get it right. This one, because of it's only a small thing. What I've done with that one and this one, I bought some old frames, and these are the backing boards, so at least you know you've got a frame to fit your picture. And I'm going to have a go at something like that, because it's vaguely in the same proportions as my piece of paper, added to which I've got brush marks, purely coincidentally, which are vaguely similar. So again, I'm going to have a go at that. I won't do a direct copy of it, but I'll do my version, trying to use some of the techniques that Robert Wood used. If you ever see any of his work, he's an absolutely fantastic English American modern impressionist, fantastic painter. But anyway, off I go. Start with white pastel, which is what I almost always use for oil paintings, and I will just sketch in roughly where the rocks are. I won't use the same rocks because these are off the California coast, and I will change them to a different west coast one off the Slane Peninsula. What I want to do is get a big splash. Actually, yeah, we'll do this one. I'll do a different one after. Okay, this will be a fairly quick one, and off I go. I'm using almost the same palette that I used yesterday, and on it I've got, this is the addition, I've got cobalt blue there, ultramarine, titanium white, Naples yellow, cadmium pale, yellow ochre, burnt umber, burnt sienna, alizarin crimson, and some Davies grey, which is a good colour for doing sea with. Somewhere I should have my little dippers. There they are. There. In my little dipper, I've only got one of them with something in it, and that is Alkyd Flow Medium. I'll tap it on the end. These are alkyd oils, which dry quickly. They are proper oil paints, but you get it's a lot quicker to do stuff with them. You've got all the pros of working with oils, the blending and everything, but they're dry in a couple of days. Right, okay, now I've got some colours already on the palette from yesterday, and I'm mixing up a sort of grey colour using a lot of the yellowy browns that I used in the sea, and I'm adding cobalt blue and a touch of alizarin to it, because I want a sort of grey coloured sky. And that's the mix. It looks very blue under the lights, but it's quite grey really. Now I'm gonna put this very loose sky. That probably won't go anywhere. Now around that wave I'm going to be letting some of this burnt sienna colour show through. I'll add a little bit of yellowy colours to it as well, because I'll put you back down. Because you get lots of different colours, there'll be light reflected in that wave. Clean the brush with white spirit, and into that I'm going to mix a little orangey colour, which which is a base for that splashy wave. More of that sky colour down the back. Just putting some lighter colours into that sky. I don't want it to look blue, I don't want it to look solid. It's a sort of windy, onshore, cloudy sky with some bits of light here and there. And there, that's a bit of that. Now, I'm going to mix up some dark colours. Now, in the painting I just showed you, it was very browny coloured rock. That was off the west coast of California. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to mix a much more grey, purpley colour, which is off the west coast of Wales, and I'm painting this quite roughly because the colours underneath will show through a little bit and give some areas of light. And part of the technique of painting like Robert Wood is speed. He was an amazing man, and he used to have a vaudeville type show one time that he'd do just to make money, and he would, stage act basically was, he'd get the band to play a piece of music, or they'd put a record on depending on where he was, and he would paint a picture while that music was playing. And God knows what happened to it. He was a very prolific painter, and he also used to put himself in shop windows, and he would paint in the shop window, and then somebody could come in and buy the picture. That was in his hobo days. He was he left England, Bristol I think he was from, or somewhere down south. He left England tail end of the First World War, went across to America on his own, and basically became a hobo. He would travel all over the country painting, and amazing man. And he became, by the time the 70s came, late 60s, 70s, he became the Bob Ross of his day, or, well, I think he's better than Bob Ross. I just love his style. Look him up on Tinternet. There's lots and lots of pictures of his originals, and even prints are still for sale, and they're expensive. He's an excellent landscape painter. He lived in, at this time he was living in California, but at other times he lived in Texas and somewhere in the Midwest, I think. Did pictures of the Rockies and lots of Texas pictures, and some wonderful Californian ones. I love his Californian seascapes. I'm not painting anything, I'm just putting marks on. And what is important about this is the energy. Huge amount of energy trapped in water, waves. I'm dotty about the sea. I will sit for hours watching the sea come in and go out and splash about on rocks. Right, I need to put in a dab of my proper red, if I can find it. Come here, Mr. Cadmium, where have you gone? Down there somewhere. That's because I want to make lots of different colours in there. What I've done, there was some yellow underneath everything to warm it up, then I put this thick white on, and now I'm very loosely putting colours into that. And put some sea colour, which is the cobalt blue and Davies grey, touch of burnt umber, this sea colour, some yellow ochre into it as well to green it down. I'm using the brush strokes to make the marks, to try and get the energy into it. I'm doing very little mixing on the palette. What I'm doing is mixing it on the canvas, on the board. Now, there's that big rock. Oh, out of nowhere a song springs to mind, the Big Rock Candy Mountain. God knows where that came from. Somewhere out of my far distant past. Now, burnt umber and ultramarine make practically black. Just put a dash of alizarin into it, and there you got this dark grey colour, and there's still some light grey in the base of the brush. And what I'm doing is I'm using the tip for the darks and then spreading light colours as well. A paintbrush is like a musical instrument. You play it. You can get loads and loads of different notes, and just by using it in different ways. There's no right or wrong way to hold a paintbrush. You do it the way it feels comfortable, which is one of the things which I learned from this book. There is no right or wrong way. You do what you want, or you do what works. You do what you want. If it doesn't work, then you learn from that. I'm putting some Naples yellow into the whites here just to add a little bit of something to this foam. some wet bits on the rock. Now more bits of rock which the sea is breaking over. Now, have a little think about that. Now, into there, I need a little bit more direction. There's big greeny yellow bit there which will get covered up with white or blended into white, because I want to get the idea that this wave is falling over on itself as it breaks. It's going in lots of different directions, this spray. But there's the centre of the vortex is more or less down here somewhere. And then there's sort of aftershocks that have made these splashes up in the air. Now, even though that dark paint is wet, because I'm just using thick paint and dabbing it on top, it just sits on top of it. cobalt blue, cadmium pale, and some white. Trying to get some structure to the waves or wavelets, little bits here, because waves are solid things. They have light and shade, same as everything else. And what's weird is that the light bits actually cast shadows. I use a smaller, longer brush, that one there, because I want to get some more movement into this foam over here where it's hitting there. And coming back. Now, it's getting somewhere now. Now, I'm going to use quite an old brush actually. It's fairly rough. It's quite a cheap brush this, but it's handy for doing rocks and stuff because now I've got all that movement and I need some totally solid darks in the middle of it, which don't move at all. Everything else moves around them. don't know if that's going to work, but I'm trying to get the impression of water just sliding over the top of that rock. Now, my favourite brush. It's getting a bit battered now, but it's a Rosemary & Co. Ivory Rigger, and that's a number 4, and it's just wonderful. It's like, well, it's a rigger, but it's made of bristle. It's not made of soft hair. It's actually, and it's incredibly springy, and all I want to do is put some detail-y sort of movement I'm doing is I'm loading the whole brush, and then I'm using the side of it to flick out, which almost mimics the wave. Some frothy bits, technical term, frothy bits around these. And it's all to do with movement. and I think I'm more or less done. Just a few added sparkles here and there in the foreground. Yes, I quite like that. Yes, if I do much more to that, I'm going to ruin it. What I'll do now is I'll stop that there, and I'm going to take the camera off and do a little walk around the picture. So here we go. We're handheld now, so it'll be a bit woggly, and I'm just going to zoom in, see if I can show some of the brush strokes where it splashes about. An empty sky apart from the odd splash. Now what I'm trying to get there is the solidity of those rocks, and then the fluidity of the waves. Just noticed that big lumpy blue bit there. It's enough to make you sick. Right, what I've done there is I've used, there was a very solid lump of blue which I've smeared out, and I've made some more sparkles around it. There. This is why I love oils so much, because you get this luscious feeling when you're playing with them. It's what they say, first love never dies. I started playing with oils when I was 13, 14 with the help of that book, and now I'm 70, nearly 71, and I'm still playing with oils. I play with all sorts of other things too. But there, hope you like that big splashy picture, and I'll put that up on YouTube later on.